let's take a look here at FACLs. Now, I guess we're running a little short on time for that 3:30 spot, so I'm going to run through this a little quickly, but give you all a chance to at least see what we have here, right? So FACLs are essentially additional permissions. Up until this point, we've talked about owner, group, and all others. Well, this allows us to add maybe an additional user that has access to a file that might not be part of the owner, the group, or maybe we want to open up to everybody, but we want up to one more user. Okay, so these commands here, set FACL and get FACL. Those are the two that we want to work with. And the basics for setting a FACL would be set FACL -m for modify, and then we're modifying a user FACL, right? So we want to give, in this case here, we want to give the user rack read, write, execute permissions to a certain file without having to open it up to everybody else or add rack to a specific group. We get that back from a get FACL on that file there, okay? If we want to update it, it's simply a matter of removing a FACL, right? A named FACL, if you will, and then setting a new one. Or we can delete FACLs altogether with a -x for a very specific FACL, and what we call a named FACL here. -k for default FACLs, which is, it's hard to remember, right? So default, K is not really associated with that at all, or -b for all FACLs, right? And this is one of those things where the man page is extremely useful. And me, myself, I always have to go back to man page, make sure I'm understanding the correct flags for this when I'm running it. So let's see here. So one thing also I want to talk about here is FACL defaults, okay? So we can create one-off FACLs, but much like we had for the set GID bit, where all files within a directory were created with the group ownership permissions, we can set default FACLs so that all files underneath that directory will have the same set of FACLs as well, okay? And then last on the slide here, before we hop to our demo, is a FACL for effective permissions. Now, this is one of those that gets a little tricky. So with FACLs, we can add multiple users to have extra permissions on the file, but those permissions are only opened up as much as the group permissions on a file. And that gets a little tricky, but once we get to command line, we'll see what that looks like, okay? So just keep in mind that FACLs are affected by the group ownership of a file, okay? So taking a look at our system here, let's go into root. So real quick here, let's go into permissions and then our directory here. So real quick, let's do a get FACL. We'll say get FACL new file, okay? Notice here that we have user, group, and other. So this is what it looks like when a file has no FACLs on it. We just get an output of what the permissions already are, okay? But let's say I want to add FACLs to it. I might do a set FACL -m, again for modify, and we're going to add what's called a user FACL. So U, we also had a group FACL, we did a G, but we're going to do U : what user we want. So in this case, we'll say vagrant, and then permissions we want to add to that. Well, I want to be able to read, write, execute on, or read and write on new file here. Okay. Now we'll see if I do a get FACL on a new file. See, now we have a new user FACL there, right? So user read write, user vagrant read write. Okay, so it tells me that now the vagrant user can read and write, even though it's not part of the group permissions, right? So it gives me a little bigger permissions than the all other. Now notice also here that period at the end, it turned to a plus. Again, that's how we note that there are FACLs on this file or this directory, okay? Now, let's see here. If I want to remove those, real quick, we do set FACL -x. So we do a -x, we need to remove the named FACL. So usually it's going to be very simply what we added before, U and vagrant. Here, new file. You get FACL file. Again, now it's gone. Now I want to highlight those effective permissions I was talking about. Notice on the new file, our group permissions are read and write. Okay. But what if I did this? What if I just set FACL and I said, I want a M for modify, I want a U for user, vagrant, and then read, write, execute on new file. Okay. So now when we do this, we have a get FACL, new file. We have read, write, and execute on that. Let's see here. Did I get that right here? Yeah. So read, write, execute on that right there. So what if I did this? chmod, let's do 644 for a new file. Again, modifying the group permissions here. Okay, new file. Then I get FACL for a new file. Now notice we have this extra line here, effective permissions. Because I modified the group permissions outside of these FACLs, the user vagrant does have a FACL for read, write, execute, but their effective permissions are still just read, matching the new permission we set here for 644. Okay, so that's one of those things where I say like using FACLs can get a bit tricky if you're doing it either system wide or on a large number of files, or multiple people are modifying FACLs and permissions at the same time. This is one of those things where if you are using FACLs, use FACLs. If you're not using FACLs, try to stay away from them because they can get murky in the way that it gets added. And then for defaults, here real quick. Let's say I have a directory here. Let's do our directory. Let's do get FACL on that directory. Get FACL directory. All right, so pretty standard. Again, nothing new here. Let's do the same thing. Let's do a set FACL. -mu. We'll say, so I'll do a D for default. We'll say U vagrant, and then we'll say read, write, execute on directory. I did that wrong. And set FACL again. This is one of the things I need to go look at sometimes. Actually, yeah. Set FACL -- help. Where's my default? Yeah, so set FACL -t. Let's do a user X. And why isn't that working? Oh, let's do D and I believe M. There we go. Sorry about that. So we're modifying, but we're also adding a default to it. That's what I was forgetting. And so let's take a look at that. Let's do a get FACL for directory. And notice what we have here. Now we have some defaults, right? So user vagrant RWX. So what this means, if I go into a directory, and I touch new file vagrant. Okay. Notice now that I know that I have FACLs on this. If I do a get FACL, I'll see new file vagrant. There we see we already have our vagrant FACL on there. Again, so that's how defaults would work on a directory. So very similar to the set group ID bit. Okay. All right. Then taking a look here. So real quick, slight gotcha. Depending on your backup system or backup method, FACLs aren't stored essentially with the file. So if you do a tarball or you copy your file to another location, FACLs aren't stored with it, right? So what we try to do is, if we're using FACLs, to back them up periodically. So in case we need to, we can restore them should we have a failure, or for disaster recovery, if we need to move, or after our restore the permissions. Again, this is one of those things that for us, when we restore file or back files up and restore them, the FACLs don't come with it. So we try to have backups, or we try to distance ourselves from using FACLs. they're out there, they're great. But from our side, if we can create a user system or user configuration where the group is what we need for access, then we're avoiding FACLs if we can, right? So for us, it's kind of a last effort here. So let's see here. All right, so quick review here. Sorry, I'm running a little late. So we covered file system permissions, right? We covered using the chown and the chmod commands. We talked about how we can change those permissions symbolically, right? So whether it be read, write, execute, or some combination of that, or octal, right? So 755, 644 were those numbers, right? We talked about umask and etsyscale. Again, masking, the biggest thing here to remember is that we are masking those bits off of the default, not subtracting that number. For example, not subtracting 2 from 7, but effectively masking off that 2-bit from the permission set. And then lastly, we covered FACLs, right? How to create them, update them, delete them, how to replace them, some of the limitations and some of the gotchas with them, right? So that being said, I believe if any of you have any questions, right? So my contact information is the same thing with any presentation I do publicly. My email address is up there, my Twitter handle's up there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out or reach out to Elle. Elle will get a hold of me. It's always a good way to do it too.